Morning, everyone. Today we're going to continue with the essay by Keiron Grice. The total essay is entitled The Metamorphosis of the Gods, Archetypal, Archetypal Astrology, and the Transformation of the God Image in the Red Book. And I'll be starting that in just a moment. Just set up my screen properly here. Okay. So meanwhile, I want to mention uh, a book entitled The Golden Road by William Dalrymple. This is a remarkable book about the development of the ancient world, and for a lot of it, it predates Christ. It's the development of the world, including places like India, Pakistan, China, and so on. But it's just fascinating to see basically where all of our religions and philosophies have originated and what they've done. I meant to bring the book down today, but in any case, I urge you to get a copy for yourself and read it if you're at all interested in what happened in the ancient world, because it's pretty remarkable. And I suppose chances are that um, you are not familiar with the place called Taxila. I will put it in the chat here. That was a city where the first medical school was started. It's in what today is Pakistan. I've been there and it's quite amazing. And it was a Buddhist city, basically. And it shows, among other things, how all the Buddhist statues have very curly hair in the image, and that's because the Greeks, going back to Alexander the Great, 327 years before, um, 327 years before Christ, came and conquered India for a time, and then they went home. But in any case, they did stay in India for quite some time and had their impact, including curly hair and the Buddhas. So it's worth taking a look at. Um, and so anyway, okay, so I'm going to begin with this essay, and it's really a remarkable essay. Um, and just what I'm doing here, I'm trying to get my screen set up so that I can see both the YouTube and my Zoom main screen. So here we are. Okay, so today I'm reading from this book. It's Jung's Red Book for Our Time, Searching for Soul Under Postmodern Conditions. And it's edited by Murray Stein and Thomas Arst. And this is volume 2. There are 5 volumes of this series, and it's really a worthwhile series to have in your collection. Okay, the dark spirit in nature. Since the returning and rediscovered god, Abraxas has a pagan, chthonic quality. Nietzsche had proclaimed the Übermensch as the meaning of the earth and championed the reemergence of Dionysus, the ancient god of the vine and personification of intoxicated frenzy, in which the principium individuationis is obliterated. The Neptune-Pluto conjunction heralded the resurrection of a repressed and forgotten dark, chthonic nature spirit. As Jung described it in Mysterium Conjunctionis, a spirit represented by figures such as Dionysus, Pan, Hades, the devil, and the alchemical Mercurius. In the Red Book, Elijah's vision portrays the pagan primeval quality of the unknown God. The image that I saw was, quote, and here's what this is quoting Jung, I believe. The image that I saw was crimson, fiery colored, a gleaming gold. The voice that I heard was like distant thunder, like the wind roaring in the forest, like an earthquake. It was not the voice of my God, but it was a thunderous pagan roar. Um, a call my ancestors knew, but which I had never heard. It sounded prehistoric, as if from a forest on a distant coast. It rang with voices of the wilderness. It was full of horror, yet harmonic. We see here further evidence of the decidedly Plutonic quality of the Neptunian conceptions of spirit emerging from the turn of the 20th century. For Pluto is associated with the primal elemental power of nature and underworld of the instincts. J.R.R. Tolkien, born in 1892 during the Neptune-Pluto conjunction, gave exceptionally vivid expression of these themes in The Lord of the Rings. Plutonic qualities were prominent too in the resurrection of the pagan deity Wotan, erupting into the collective consciousness of the German people during the 1930s. Jung believed, leading to the catastrophe of the Second World War, Nazism drew on the compelling hypnotic power of the Neptune-Pluto complex in propounding the warped ideology and mythos of Aryan supremacy. With this comes a warning. The combination of Neptunian fantasy and Plutonic instinct can pull us remorselessly under its sway, sometimes at the expense of morality, human feeling, and reasoned judgment. For better or worse, when it awakens and stirs, the long repressed power of the unconscious can flood into human consciousness as an avenging deluge, overwhelming us with a stream of captivating fantasies and gripping instinctual urges. Thus, the challenge for us today, as we move further into the 500-year Neptune-Pluto cycle, is to find a way to come to terms with the dark power of the reawakened chthonic god, the dark spirit in nature, without being devoured, consumed, possessed, or obliterated by it. Okay, so that's that segment of this essay by Keiron Grice. I'll look and see if we have any comments here on YouTube. Not as yet, but good morning, everyone. Glad that you're here. And gee, does this ring a bell with anyone about the dark spirit? Oh my God. Uh, just think of 50 young kids that were swept away in a flood yesterday, and I'm not saying that a God reached down and caused this flood. I'm saying that um, a series of factors have developed um, in which that could happen, and so I'm not of the opinion that a God is able to reach down and touch us with something so horrific as a flood. Um, but um, lots of things piled up that, including not taking care of levees and that sort of thing over the years, that made it possible to be as bad as it was. Um, and I I'm with the Methodist minister who said, who was asked, why does God do such things? And he said, well, I'm not about how God does such things. I'm about how we treat one another after it happens. And Carl Jung was of the opinion that the world was created when when uh, God took dice out of his pocket, threw them on the floor, and said, "Let there be a world," and hasn't taken any direct responsibility since then. So it's up to us to work with what God gave us. And I'm more of that type. Okay. So this last part of this essay, which I've been working on for 3 weeks, is entitled Archetypal Astrology as a Mythic Guide to Life. So what is a myth? It's an explanation of things that are not yet understood. And so ancient Greece and um, ancient Rome didn't understand lots of things, so they invented gods to describe them. Uh, Nobody ever saw these gods except maybe in their psyche, but um, anyway, it was accepted that they existed. Okay, so archetypal astrology is a mythic guide to life. To explore the significance of Jung's Red Book, I have focused primarily on historical periods defined by the combined expression of the transpersonal archetype associated with Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. But astrology can also be used to gain insight into how these principles manifest in our individual experience. Our relationship to Pluto, as symbolized in astrological birth charts and transits, is particularly important in determining how the Abraxas-like instinctual power and creative destructive energy associated with Pluto manifest in our lives. The archetype the Pluto archetype shows up in our passions, compulsions, drives, obsessions, and in the sense of being gripped and fatefully called in relationship to other planets in birth charts and transits. Uh, Pluto indicates where we ourselves might encounter the power of the instinctual underworld of the psyche and can be transformed through it. Similarly, considering our relationship to Neptune can help us to become more conscious of how we engage with the spiritual dimension of life, how we seek oneness and unity and a more ideal and perfect life. It indicates, too, where we seek transcendence or escape from the pressures of life and look for a sense of enchantment and mystery, or find ourselves susceptible to projection and illusion. Jung's Red Book might serve as a guide as we seek to work out the relationship between the Neptune and Pluto principles in our lives, bringing the realm of the spirit as articulated in the religious traditions into dialectic engagement with the underworld of the instincts and the dark power impressing itself on our collective consciousness. So let's understand one thing clearly before I read the last two paragraphs here. Um, when Jung believed in astrology, he did not think in terms of the woo-woo astrology that a lot of people think exists in the world, which it does not. But how it does exist is that people for thousands of years have attributed events to the stars, and as a result, created within us a another universe that's in our psyche. And the Pluto in our psyche and the Neptune in our psyches um, does have these features because they were developed within humanity. And so that's why astrology as a predictive technique or whatever, something to jog your mind, um, does work. Um, and so it isn't because something will happen because something happened up in the heavens. Um, and Good afternoon, Roberta. Nice to see you. Been a while. Yeah, I still have this image for you, but it got sent back by the Portuguese post, so I can't send it to you, it seems. I don't understand what's happened to our international postal services, but I sent something to Brazil as well that didn't show up. Okay, so now I'm going to continue with this, and I'm reading from this part of the essay called um, Archetypal Astrology. Sorry, Archetypal Astrology as a Mythic Guide to Life. Okay, so what happens when you do a astrological reading is the reader, whether it's reading a newspaper column that gives you your astrology for the day, or a more precise one related to you, what the reader does is give you a lot of possibilities, and your psyche latches onto the part that it thinks relates to you. Um, and and so, it is, those things are significant. And I've started to read um, astrology, one astrologer every day, because she seems to hit the things that affect me. And, um, remember that, uh, remember the dictum that the whole purpose of Jungian psychology is to make accessible the healing power of the unconscious. Well, the healing power of the unconscious is brought to you by you. In other words, uh, if you hear an astrologer say something, or me say something that doesn't have anything to do with astrology, it may um, activate something in your own psyche and help you understand, um, what's happening in your life or what's happening in the world. That's the only thing I can say. And yeah, Roberta says, I listened to one who has incredible synchronicities with my life, and usually I learn in hindsight. Absolutely, it is 2020 hindsight very often. Um, and so it's there. And when you bring it to consciousness, then you have to decide what to do with it, whatever it brings to consciousness. And so when I paint every morning, for example, I am just paying attention to the things that come to my mind while I'm doing the painting, not the painting itself, not the colors that I'm putting on the paper, but lots of different things come into my mind, and then I can work with them in my consciousness. And that makes accessible the healing power of my unconscious. And so I'm very grateful for that. Um, okay, so let me finish out this essay now. The various combinations of planetary archetypes are associated with sets of themes and complexes. We have seen several examples here of those pertaining to Neptune, Pluto, and Uranus, Neptune. In each case, one can consider how the planets are related to each other in one's birth chart and in transits in order to determine themes prominent in one's own life and personality. If Saturn and Neptune come into a personal transit alignment, for instance, one would recognize in one's experiences uh, during this time any number of themes associated with this archetypal complex, such as religious skepticism and the denial of spiritual qualities, spiritual realities, loss of faith, dark vision and morbid fantasies, a poignant sense of life's sufferings and endings, and the puncturing of an illusion by the hard facts of one's reality. As Tarnas points out, this is Richard Tarnas, by the way, Nietzsche's revelation of the death of God in 1882 came out of this very archetypal pairing during a conjunction of Saturn, Neptune, and Pluto, giving expression to many of these themes. Or to give another example, we might identify periods in life when Uranus and Neptune were in major geometric alignment and observe correlations with experiences of spiritual awakening or exciting, emancipatory, and perhaps destabilizing insights into the nature of reality, the nature of God, and the purpose of our existence. Uh, I'll just finish this up. Uh, in this way, archetypal astrology can be used to effectively map our personal relationships to the archetypes, the powers personified by the gods, the very powers engaged by Jung in the revelations that comprise his Red Book in Archetypal Cosmos. I describe archetypal astrology as a meta mythology for it is not itself a myth, but it enables us to understand our individual relationship to the principles and themes expressed in myth and religion. It offers a form of cosmological orientation that might help us to become more conscious of the forces shaping our psychological experience as we try to navigate the uncertain transitions of our historical moment and play our part in the evolution of consciousness and the spirit. Okay. So there's a lot packed in there. As you see, it's kind of getting me hypnotized just reading it. Um, but the whole purpose is for you to get it, okay? For you to understand what it is that people are talking about when they talk about God. And synchronicity is one of the things, as Roberta points out. There are a lot of synchronous events. I have synchronicity happening to me every single day without fail, but that's partially because I have learned to recognize it as such. Um, Good morning, Archiphanus. And so, anyway, so when he's talking about an Abraxas-like figure, he could be talking about something like our president at the moment, who uh, claims that he's above the law and and that he knows what's best. Well, actually, that's sort of a first phase of opening up one's unconscious, where things that aren't so good can pop up, and you need to be able to handle them. And you can handle them with a psychologist, or you can wrestle with them yourself. But you don't have to take as gospel what somebody else's unconscious says to you. And unfortunately, we have a lot of people that are doing that. Um, so just see if anything else here. Okay. So that's the end of that article. It's always difficult to work with these things because, um, people get it confused and mixed up with things that, they've learned over the years, or they believe over the years. But, you and I can be sitting talking over tea and or coffee, and I can say something that would put you off into an archetypal reverie and may cause you to go away altogether. And so every interaction um, is creating this accessibility to the unconscious. I mean, as I've demonstrated many times before, I can say a word that none of you are thinking about right now, and say that this uh, creature that I'm going to describe is in the room, and you may believe me or not believe me, but I can assure you that this creature is in the room, and the word is elephant. and, and so I can take my cloaking off and show you that there's no physical elephant in this room, but now we have an elephant that's sort of stomping around in this YouTube channel, communicating with you in various ways that an elephant might communicate. And it won't go away. And so sometimes those things can be pretty evil because the elephant can turn on you and trample you, or it can put its paw on your face and make you think that your face is going to be crushed, but then uh, let it go very tenderly. Um, and, both possibilities are in elephants. Okay. All right. So now I have to decide what else to read uh, in that essay, and probably nothing else. And so anyway, we'll go on to the next essay. We have some time, and I can stay awake. I am in the process of preparing for um, one of our praxis exams in Maryland. In order to be certified, not only do you have to take all the coursework, but you also have to pass certain tests. It's like taking the bar exam on a kind of a mini level. Uh, and so it's not as broad as the bar exam, which is a 2-day test in the state of New York. It's 12 essay questions in 2 days. And you demonstrate your ability as a lawyer in that 2-day writing thing. And in school, for school, we get multiple choice questions, but those questions are extremely subtle and um, fake you out. And so I've actually taken this reading praxis. Mind you, I've passed 2 bar exams, New York and Florida, and uh, many other exams in my life with, standardized tests, etc. But these are the only tests that I've ever taken that uh, I have failed and have to take them over again. And it's really a surprising challenge to figure out what we have to do to study. Um, so it's keeping me up at night, and I'm going to be taking that exam on teaching elementary reading 2 weeks from Tuesday, and hopefully this time I will pass it. It's been a bugaboo of mine for about a year now for various reasons, and just got to keep plugging on it until it's done. And mind you, I'm 78 years old, so my getting myself certified as a teacher is a non-trivial task. Even though I took all the courses, all the coursework, um, more than 50 years ago. And so almost 60 years ago, believe it or not, it was in 1968 that I became certified to teach social studies in the state of New York. And in 1974, I was permanently certified to teach social studies in the state of New York. And yet, when I came to Maryland, they accepted my coursework, but I had to take the social studies test. And I did that and passed that, fortunately. So I am certified to teach social studies in Maryland, the problem is I'm not teaching social studies. I'm teaching special education to in our behaviorally challenged school in in Maryland. Um, and so let's see. So Anthony says, can suggestion and auto-suggestion can be accidentally or deliberately misused? I think both are possible. And um, obviously um, our politics is full of it right now with people making fake news, and it's very difficult to figure out often what the truth is. I know my kids that I teach are struggling with it. What's the truth? Um, and I've been asked about 5 different times by students, did I ever own slaves? And slavery has been over in the United States, at least the kind that they're talking about, which is slave labor to do farm work, um, has been over for 167 years or something, 170 years. Sorry, my voice is troubling me. Cherie says, my apologies for being late. I was reading The Vicar of Wakefield by Oliver Goldsmith and listening to classic music, and I woke gently. Very, very wise, Cherie. And Roberta says, wow, I never got on well with tests at school. My best wishes. Thanks. uh, let's see. Good day to everybody. Uh, and Fesson Lee says, hello from Sri Lanka. Well, welcome. Uh, yeah. And so, the question, as Roberta correctly says, bless them. I think she's referring to my students who ask if I ever owned slaves. And, what's the truth? Well, the truth is pretty complicated because, now we have a president who's going to incarcerate a lot of people. And are they going to be slaves? It's as it is now in our for-profit prisons, uh, the owners of those prisons use that labor, those people, to do things. I mean, it's archetypal that, excuse me, they make license plates, but um, they do lots of other things. For example, collections call centers are operated from prisons in many cases. And so it's just really bizarre. Yeah, and Roberta says, oh dear, we are all slaves. We could go down the rabbit hole. And So Kisson asks if I listen to neoclassical music. Well, I don't know how you define that per se, but in principle, yes, I do listen to classical music. And um, what if neoclassical music is orchestral music? Yeah, I definitely do. Um, and So anyway, so for-profit prisons, they don't whip them, but they might not feed them, I suppose, and they do pay them a very small amount of money, like $2.15 an hour. which is below the minimum wage. So that's why they get that business, because there's a arbitrage opportunity in getting labor for less than minimum wage. And so lots of people are attracted to that. I mean, lots of businesses are attracted to it. And once you get in that treadmill, then okay, now you're no longer working for yourself, you're working for the prison. Um, and Sherry says, read France Omar Fanon's books or read them. Um, I guess Black Skin, White Masks, The Wretched Earth. How is that connected to Foucault's philosophy? Well, I don't know what Foucault's philosophy is per se. Uh, he's a he's a strange guy, um, and I read I think it's called Foucault's Pendulum at one point. Um, And Keiron says he's listened to me read the Red Book. Yeah, I've read it. I'm currently in my third reading of the Red Book in our advanced class, which we do on Wednesdays. And so if anybody is interested in joining our advanced class, let me give you the link if I can find it on my computer. That's a problem these days. I thought I would get new backup disks for my computer. And so, yes, I have new backup disks, but now it's created a weird set of um, directories. So I can't find things anymore, not easily anyway. I'm working through that. But anyway, all right. So if you want to come to our Wednesday class, um, I'm going to put our Wednesday class in it. We do it at 5 p.m. on Wednesdays, Eastern Standard Time. And did that go? No, I'm even not. They're changing the way things are cut and pasted anymore. So I think no, that's too big. Okay, so uh, I have to, let's see. Okay, now this is in the YouTube chat. Um, I'm putting first the link to the Wednesday class, and hopefully this time it will go. All right, so yeah, all right, so there's the link, and I'm not exactly sure why that came over that way. Uh, oh, I see. Okay, so the uh, everything up to 6867 is well. All right, let me start once more. All right, so here's the link to our Wednesday class. We're almost finished doing the Red Book, and we'll be starting something else within a couple of months. But all right. So that's the link to the class, and the password is this. All right, so that's Wednesday. And again, this is 5 o'clock p.m. Uh, Eastern Daylight Time on Wednesdays, every Wednesday. And we have a good group of people that have been with us for a while, and we've been reading the Red Book. We're into scrutinies at the moment, which is the last portion of the Red Book, but it's quite interesting, and we haven't yet gotten to the seven sermons to the dead, which is a very important part of Dr. Jung's work. And let's see, while I'm at it, I might as well give the coordinates. If you want to come here and get on with me, it helps me a lot if I have somebody in the panel helping me, because just talking to myself for 2 hours gets old. Um, but here is the password and the webinar number for the Sunday session. So if you want to join me live here, you will be recorded. Your image will go on YouTube, and but we can have a conversation, and that does help push me along in these sessions. And fortunately or unfortunately, I had a partner in this effort for several years, Jordan Hoggard, as many of you know, who works as he works as a tarot reader in Taos, New Mexico. And I would urge you to go back and look at some of the things that Jordan said. He was quite an erudite man, and knows a lot about ancient philosophy and so on. But I guess he and I are not quite of the same stripe, um, vis-a-vis our current political situation. And I guess he decided to. Uh, I sent him a meme at one point, not on here, but on social networking, and I guess I offended his MAGA sensibilities. But in any case, for my part, I think all Americans are Americans, and this includes anybody that's an immigrant and has gotten into the United States uh, through normal means and who has become a naturalized citizens. They're every bit as much Americans as I am, and I accept them as such. But it seems that our current administration doesn't feel that way, and so they're pushing them out. And of course, there are a lot of very desperate people in the world who live in countries that are unfortunately um, autocratic, and so they have pretty bad lives actually in their own country, and so they try to come here. And we did have about 2 million people a year coming in. Now, here's the facts. We need in the United States, we need about at least 1.5 million immigrants every year in order to keep up with our economic needs, because our economy just needs that many people to do the work, because we have a ever growing population, also by natural childbirth, and and there's more and more work to do in this country. And so if we don't have those people, a lot of things don't get done. And I've seen that happen um, with my friend Tim Holmes, who had a foundry. He's a sculptor, and he does lost wax sculptures that create a bronze. And in order to create that sculpture, you have to heat the bronze to over 1,000 degrees. And so there's not everybody that wants to work with that kind of a situation. And and so Tim had a foundry for many years, but now um, and, and the people that were doing it, many of them were immigrants, but now they can no longer find people to do the work, and so the foundry had to close down after 40 years. And the same is true, if you look at your steaks in the grocery store, um, those steaks come from packing houses, and working in a packing house is a pretty gruesome and unpopular job, but a lot of people do it because they can't do anything else. And so, we have all kinds of immigrants, and many of them are not documented, who work in such places. And it's not the way I would prefer us to do it. I would prefer to have a formal citizen system whereby people can work in the U.S., send money home, and take care of their family back home and live respectfully, but and also have a path to citizenship. But our current administration doesn't seem to see eye to eye with me on that. So I guess we have to live with what we've got. But in any case, so, I do apologize for, no, I don't. I make no apology for the fact that I am a liberal. I've always been a liberal. When I graduated from college, the day I graduated, I accepted a commission in the U.S. Marine Corps. At the time, all of my classmates, every one of them, thought that I was a hyper conservative. And the fact is, I'm the complete opposite. And many of those people are now hyper conservatives. and they finally are seeing that I'm liberal. So anyway, if you want to, I'm certainly happy to talk with anyone and enjoy having anyone with us, as long as you're respectful of the process. But uh, but just know what you get. And unfortunately, and to his credit, Jordan um, Hoggard put up with the difference between our perspectives for several years. And I don't know, I guess something's happening in the economy right now that um, maybe has made him more sensitive or something. I want to read something that I find is funny. We're talking about religion and so on, and one of my colleagues is a born again Christian fundamentalist and believes in the rapture, and they believe that at some point Christ or God or somebody is going to come down and take them up to heaven, and leave the rest of us behind. And that leads to all kinds of um, yeah, angry reactions with between fundamentalists and the rest. And anyway, my wife, who's uh, a dyed-in-the-wool Buddhist, Tibetan Buddhist, um, said, "Well, um, she said, well, if the rapture, these people go up to heaven all of a sudden like that, then I think we should call it the riddance because we'll be rid of them." And she mentioned that to ChatGPT or Microsoft Copilot is what she said. And here's what Microsoft Copilot responded to her, which is she's talking about calling it, instead of the rapture, the riddance, because the fundamentalists will be taken up to heaven and the rest of us will be left behind. And so she calls it the riddance. And so here's what Microsoft Copilot says. And hey, if you're founding the Church of the Riddance, I'd be honored to help draft the tenets. We could start with, quote, "Blessed are the left behind, for they inherited the earth and finally got some peace and quiet," unquote. I just think that's hilarious. And and I'm so sorry that fundamentalists, and apparently this was a church related summer camp where the girls were washed away, and I wouldn't want anybody to think that that was the rapture. And I don't, I'm mourning their loss. I'm not joking about being rid of their futures now, which is truly tragic and doesn't have anything to do with any supreme being, of course. Um, let's see. Yeah, let's see. Let's see if I can go back here. Casson Lee wants me to read Nietzsche sometimes. Well, Mr. Lee, I would say that it's probably better if you read Nietzsche because um, when you read Nietzsche, his way of writing is zoom like this and down and up and down and up and down, and he hypnotizes me very quickly, and I I just I couldn't read it out loud. I have read several of his books, and I respect his intellect and what he did, but my tongue-in-cheek answer is that Nietzsche came along at the end of the 19th century and said God is dead and we have killed him, and Jung came along in the next generation and said, no, God is very much alive in the psyche of all of us, um, in the deep unconscious of all of our psyches. And Jung knew not only where God lives, but how God goes about doing the work of the Godhead. And it's gruesome. The First World War, the Second World War, all of our wars are examples of that. But that's how the Godhead makes us change and over time. And we didn't get the memo the first time after World War One because, okay, the Allies won World War One, but then we crammed the Treaty of Versailles down the throat of Germany, which forced them into extreme poverty in the late 1920s, and the result was that um, they were angry, and a lot of people like MAGA people today, they're justifiably angry in many cases because wonderful jobs that they had, which were paying them like $30 an hour in the auto industry back 40 years ago, um, evaporated when the powers that be, and I was a cog in that wheel, I acknowledge, but at least now I look back and recognize that I was a cog in that wheel. Um, what we did was we exported all these jobs and left huge swaths of the American Midwest um, with no means of support any longer, and so lots of towns had trouble, went under, etc. And it's very sad, uh, and that's been the case, and it emerges in our politics um, in many ways, um, and so we have to understand that we can't just stuff it to everybody and think that it's going to be hunky-dory, because it's not going to be, um, and that's what we're about to reap the whirlwind of. So Trump has just had his best day on July 4th of 2025, but he doesn't have any place to go but down, I think, now. And unfortunately, we learn things by blood, and we're knuckleheads, we human beings. Uh, and so let's see. So the point I was making about the packing houses is that, if Trump rounds up all these people that are working in, we used to call them slaughterhouses, but the people who pack our meat, they sublimated the term so that now it's packing houses instead of slaughterhouses because it makes us feel better about it somehow. Um, and but people don't want to take those jobs, and so we've been having people who were illegal aliens do it for very low wages, and um, if we send them all out of the country, somebody else is going to have to do them, or we're going to have our meat's going to become very expensive, um, and so we'll see how the current administration resolves this when they've made life miserable here for many groups. Um, let's see. Um, Cherie says, what does empathize and understand that which we should, and not caring about the immigrants who are running in fear and all over the world. And yeah, I mean, I have a friend who's a psychologist up at Skidmore College, and his solution is we ought to just go to these countries and drop bags of money, uh, and let make excuse me, help other countries improve their way of being. Um, and of course, that was the part of the mission of USAID was to do exactly that. Um, and instead of just being this very rigid society where we have barbed wire fences and walls along our whole border and that sort of thing, it doesn't work very well because people fly over walls these days. Let's see. And Richard says, where is he? So Richard says, if God holds true to the patterns, it's the evil people that will be removed. Well, I don't think any of the little girls in Texas were evil people, at least not yet. And anyway, so SLSB says, I've been reading the books by Grice, and they are amazing. I had already read the Archetypal Cosmos a few years ago, but lately he published 4 books in 2 years, I think. Yeah, he's a great writer, and he's very well known. Um, and so anyway, okay, I'm gonna move on here. So the next essay in this book, I'm working with this book, which is Jung's Red Book for Our Time, Searching for Soul Under Postmodern Conditions, edited by Mary Stein and Thomas Arst. And I'm working with volume 2 of this. It's a 5-volume series. It has many of the famous Jungian analysts in it. And so the next essay that's in this is called it's called The Way Cultural Attitudes Are Developed in Jung's Red Book, an interview by John Beebe. John Beebe is a very known West Coast um, Jungian analyst. So I seem to have a lot of things marked. I've interviewed John Beebe, and you can find the interview here on this YouTube channel by in the YouTube search, put in John, the YouTube search for this channel, put in the word, the name of John Beebe, Beebe, and you can find his interview, which was a good one. Um, so Carson says, by the way, for the good to exist, evil must exist too. If you extinguish evil, good will vanish too. Duality of existence. Yep, this is the point of all of Jung's work to say this. They exist. If the devil exists, he doesn't get pushed aside. He finds other ways to do things. Um, and that's what the Buddhists tell us as well. And Deborah says, yes, that's been the case so far. Some say we're at a tipping point. Well, unfortunately, Deb, Deborah, there are tipping points, but it doesn't change the dualities issues. And that's what we have to understand. And so Jung's hope for the world was that the good will prevail just enough to make the world a better place. And, it's pretty hard. It's pretty hard to achieve that anyway. I mean, if we think of the United States or Western Europe as good, then um, we do a lot of pretty evil things within the context of those places. And so our immigration issue that's happening all over the country or all over the world, where people are running away from genuinely evil dictators and so on. They look for a place where they can live and raise their family, and the earth can't handle it. Ultimately, if you stacked up on the earth, living the way most Americans live, um, the earth would be crushed, or it would be so heavy that it would be attracted into the sun and just poof. Um, yeah, and Roberta says, I find Archive channel fascinating here on YouTube. Yeah, I think that may be the chat the the channel that relates to the Archive Society or something that um, Richard Tarnas's daughter was involved in. Um, yeah, as Roberta says, it's all a construct, and the only thing we can change is ourselves within. Uh, and and Richard says, when Christ comes, the evil will be gone, as he will rule with an iron rod. Now is the time of mercy for his people to repent and make all roads straight. Okay, well, that's Richard, that's a standard fundamentalist perspective, but um, it's basically saying in order to get a good world, we have to um, rule with an iron rod, and that suggests fascism, and how's that going to work? And is Jesus going to do that in all the places of the world, and against all the different religions of the world? I don't think so. Um, so yes, we need to repent, and yes, we need to seek redemption. All of us need that because all of us are sinners, and Christ correctly pointed that out. But the perspective of the world in Christ's time is quite a bit different from what it is today. And so, we could say that Christ, to the extent that he said something like that, um, had delusions of grandeur at his time. And Anthony says, only 5,000 years since Krishna's death into the 42,000 years of the Kali Yuga. So I guess we're here for Well, I think so. Uh, and yeah, Roberta says, is Christ consciousness? Hmm. Well, unfortunately, I think there's a lot of conscious evil as well. Um, the Okay, so let me read on about John Beebe. His essay is entitled The Way Cultural Attitudes Are Developed in Jung's Red Book, an interview by John Beebe. The interviewer, I am aware that in some of your writings, such as the Red Book as a work of conscience, you have identified inner figures Jung encountered through the active imagination recorded in the Red Book with different function attitudes that he names in psychological types. Lately, I gather you have been adding these various types of consciousness were for him the building blocks of something even more differentiated and refined, cultural attitudes that he forged in the course of his dialogues with the inner figures. You say, for instance, chapter 6 of Energies and Patterns, that's apparently a book of Beebe's, that Jung had to harness spiritual introverted intuition in service to embodied introverted sensation to form a religious attitude. Doesn't this challenge our usual idea of Liber Novus, the quasi new Bible that Jung inscribes in the pages of his Red Book, as already structured along religious lines? And Beebe says, I think it does, yet let me cite some sentences from editor Sono Shamdasani's introduction to the Red Book. Quote, the overall theme of the book is how Jung regains his soul and overcomes the contemporary malaise of spiritual alienation. This is ultimately achieved through enabling the rebirth of a new image of God in his soul and developing a new worldview as the form of a psychological and theological cosmology, unquote. So Shamdasani's informed statement would appear to be definitive, especially about Jung's own ambition when working on the Red Book, which he could never bring himself to publish, yet it calls for further thought on the part of present-day reader for whom Shamdasani has made Liber Novus available with such generous care. But conclusion needs to be carefully parsed, lest we take his pregnant sentence to mean that Liber Novus actually achieves the psychological and theological cosmology that Jung's soul called him to provide. Jung was invited to his task somewhat indirectly through the adventures of his extroverted, sensation-oriented soul, introduced to him early in the narrative as the fabulous belly dancer Salome, uh, contrived to lead him into her idea of a call to spiritual action was a series of episodes introducing the reality of the psyche to Jung. Okay, now, yeah, what I want to be clear here about, and the first words of Beebe in his response to this was, no, not even close. And so what I want to be clear about on the Red Book, and I always have done, is that The Red Book is Jung's experience. Jung believed that you should be in dialogue with your unconscious, the real unconscious. And you can do that any way you please. I mean, most people in the world do it through a religion, but you can do it by baking a cake and getting in touch with your unconscious. Um, People who meditate are doing that. And they have a certain way of doing it that's worked for millions, hundreds of millions of people, billions of people over thousands of years. When I paint, the paintings that I do, I intentionally do them as a way to open my unconscious, and it works for me. So I'm not saying it would work for everyone, but I've found in the last year and a half that every time my psyche is fussed, if I do some painting, it helps settle me down. So it settles my unconscious. Um, and, for example, this horrific news yesterday about this girls' camp being flooded. Uh, I mean, what a horrible thing. And I was having trouble sleeping last night, so I got up and I did some of my painting. And I think most of you are familiar with my painting, so I'm not going to show it now. But I did some of my painting to settle my mind, and it worked, and I was able to sleep after that. But I worked on the painting for three-quarters or of an hour between 1 and 2 this morning, and that helped settle my psyche. Uh, but that's for me. That works. That's what works for me. What works for you may be to go downstairs and hammer nails in boards, or whatever it is, whatever will give you access to the healing power of the unconscious. And um, it's we have to have something to heal us when these horrible events occur. Uh, if we look at what's happened in Palestine, in Gaza, um, I think 50,000 people have now been killed there. And, uh, the in my view, the knuckleheads have got to find a way to stop um, killing people. And the same is true of Putin in Ukraine. And as most of you know, I do not believe that the Ukrainians will ever submit to Russia again because of what Russia did the last time they did it. And there are old women in Ukraine who remember that, who are still alive today and remember what the Russians did, where they literally starved the Ukrainian people. And so why would I accept that back? And so I'm not believing that Mr. Putin can succeed even without U.S. help. The Ukrainians will find a way, I feel. And look at the Afghan people through both Russia and the U.S. out of Afghanistan, and the same thing keeps happening because Winston Churchill, one of his first postings as a subaltern after he uh, after he graduated from the Royal Military Academy was to, wait for it, Afghanistan. That's where he was. And that's where he began to write his books. So anyway, um, so let's see. So Richard says mythology is here to teach lessons. Most of all, myths end in tragedy with the pantheon gods who all have animal natures. Well, mythology has developed to explain things that the human species doesn't understand. And just because we understand them now, we don't need the gods to do that, doesn't mean that that they're wrong. It was just we as a species weren't there. um, and let's see. So SLB says mythology is symbolic. It speaks to us about the archetypes that run through humanity. And yes, that is true. Um, and, by studying the myths, we can understand ourselves. That's basically it. So the myths, the gods are not dead, that we just call them something different today. Um, so Kason Lee says the end of the Kali Yuga, um, when the god Shiva does his dance of destruction of duality, and then the golden age begins where there's no duality, no notion of good or bad. Well, I'm sorry, I'm not concurring that that's likely to be true. I mean, I do agree that there will be a total destruction of everything on Earth at some point. That's the nature of our sun and what it will do to us, or do to this planet and any human beings that are still on it at that point. But I, I don't believe that anything short of that level of destruction is going to destroy like duality. Um, yeah. Ah, someone has joined me. Isn't that nice? Uh, looks like an old friend. Hello.
Hi,
Uh,
Skip. Can you hear
hi.
me?
Yeah. How Michelle? Hi, Michelle. No, long
Yes.
time no see.
It
It,
has been a while.
it's good. It's good to see you, though. My goodness. Uh,
Yes.
what's been going on all this time?
A lot of things.
I'm sure.
Yeah, just a lot of things. Well, hopefully I've changed a little as a person,
Uh-huh.
which is always my goal. And I've studied more of Jung,
Hmm.
and I've learned a lot more about politics, for better or worse.
Painfully, we all have learned painfully, I think.
Yeah. And I don't know. I'm just trying to navigate every day as best as possible. And um, so you needed someone to show up.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I really needed somebody to show up. So, what I appreciate that you're here. So anyway, the point of what I was saying here is that Jung was reticent about publishing the Red Book because it's about what his experiences were. And his experiences were very unique because, he was already a made psychiatrist when all these things happened to him. And so he had a pretty good idea about what things were and weren't when it was happening. But I've had experiences with visions not quite so benign as Jung's visions, but I have had visions of personifications, including Mephistopheles himself. And so, um, but I know that that was a product of my psyche when that happened. Fortunately, I was far enough into Jung at the time that it happened that um, it didn't it didn't drive me off the road or make me want to go out and slit my wrists or anything like that.
Fully possible. I mean, it
Yeah,
can
I'm
get,
sure. I'm
yeah.
I'm sure over the last couple thousand years, if some fire and brimstone preacher was telling a story about the devil's going to come to get you, and then somebody has a vision like that, they could easily, jump off a cliff or whatever, to get away from that vision, and it's very real. It's not like it's not real. It's real. It's not physical. It's not in this physical world. It's in here, but it's nonetheless quite real. And
Yeah, we
and
just don't talk about it in our world.
right. And lots of people, I'm sure lots of people over thousands of years have gone crazy because of that. Um, and and so um, but the point was he wanted each of us to find a way to deal with our own psychological development. Okay. And that's a complicated area. And so it doesn't mean that if you had a red book, um, that it would look anything like Jung's. Okay. And I find that I do have a red book of all kinds of things that have come up for me over decades now. I'm currently exploring finding somebody that can produce a volume like Jung had, a red book volume like he had. Basically, what the red book is basically a scrapbook of his experiences, okay, which he thought it was important enough to write them out in calligraphy. Um, and and so, Jung was just showing us the way, but he wasn't saying he was explicitly saying this is my way, this is not your way. You have to find your own way to see yourself through, to understand your own psyche and how to live your life with what you have. And you know let, we see, I mean, life is so precious and it's short for everybody. And all the people in Texas who've lost daughters, and there's going to be a whole town full of those people now. Um, they have to find a way to live their life with those consciousnesses having been lost, those lives having been lost, and how to keep their own psyches in check so that they don't go crazy. I mean, I can't imagine. I think about my own daughters and how lovely they actually are, and uh, what a tragedy to lose children like that. And that would make anybody crazy, okay, to lose somebody. But Jung's point is we have to find a way to get through life, to continue on with life, even after a tragedy like that, even like after a trauma like that. Um, and it's not easy. I'm sure that there'll be a lot of new therapy clients coming out of that event, and people having to find ways of coping with the loss of a child. I've been really blessed because my daughters are in their 40s now. One of them turned 50, and they all have uh, children. And so I have grandchildren by all three of them. And those are the joys of my life. But boy, it would be a tragedy to lose any of them. That's 13 people. The grandchildren and the three daughters, and it would be a tragedy to lose their spouses too. So that's
Would,
16 people.
especially in
Um,
a nature event. Wait one
yeah,
sec, let me just go to a different room.
yeah, sure.
Um,
Yeah. And
Now it's
so I love your wolves
sorry.
back there. That's right.
Oh yes, I love dogs and
Yeah.
wolves. Um,
And
yes, I love dogs. But yeah, it's tragic how it was so sudden and, you know, realizing how vulnerable we are in our
yeah.
lives where it could change so fast.
Oh, sure.
Um, that's enough to drive anyone insane.
Yeah. And we're all threatened. Our president just bombed a very advanced country. And, we have no idea what that set in motion in that other country, not to mention what it set in motion in our own country. And so, uh, the point is we have to find a way. And as we get toward the end of our lives, as my wife points out, eventually the way vanishes. Eventually, there's a cliff and you have to step off um, into, another dimension. And how you get there is a work through everyone's lives. So, and some people have been fortunate that religions have uh, provided them with a way that if they go to church every Sunday and do all their ablutions and so on, they can feel like they're on the way right up until the last minute. But in the end, you're there, and you have to step off, and you're alone. Um,
Yeah.
so
Well, this is gonna sound insane,
yeah, go ahead.
but I remember the past couple minutes of my past life.
Uh-huh.
And it's, it's not something like you hear people say it and it's like, nice, but I don't know why they would say that. But anyways, it could just be like a psychic event. I mean, we all have the unconscious. We're all one being. We could, you know,
Yeah, well, I can't say and I wouldn't say,
yeah.
right? But I've had in my psyche all kinds of things over my lifetime. And in terms of the physical world, most of them have not been true or come true or whatever. But we can have a very interesting life. Anybody can have a very interesting life, no matter how tragic your physical life is. And
Yeah.
this is the lesson of Boetius. Have you ever heard of Boetius? Boetius. Okay, Boetius was a guy in, I think, in Italy, in one of the kingdoms of Italy, and he we owe to him, only to him, Aristotle. Okay, because he translated Aristotle for, in terms of, psychological coping, let's say, uh, during the last 10 months of his life when he was being tortured to death, where they had some sort of device on his head and they were turning screws into his head. And it must have been truly excruciating. And he wrote a book called uh, something like the uh, something like the compensation of philosophy. And Elizabeth I was known to have been reading that on the night she died. Um, be, uh, it's not the compensations, but it's something like that. We could probably find the name if we looked up. And but he basically gave us Aristotle, otherwise it would be lost to humanity because he translated it somehow. And maybe he translated it from Greek to Italian or something like that, but he got it into a modern language that we could all then learn from it later on, because obviously it got published far and wide after his death. Um, and so there are many ways to get through life. And what we're talking about is the psychological ways to cope with the fact that life is a brutal business for all of us. It's hard work. And you think you think it'll be better, and it won't necessarily. So, but what I
No, it's
wanted,
always some sort of bullshit.
yeah, it's always something,
Always.
right? It's always something. I mean,
Yeah.
here I am, almost 79 years old, and I'm studying for a, a test to have the privilege of teaching 13-year-olds that are going to threaten to kill me, okay, which has happened this year. Um, and Yeah, as Deborah C says, nasty, brutish, and short. um, and so anyway, let's read on and say what.
Oh, but was there something specific about Aristotle?
Well, what I was saying was that uh, the point I was making was that Boetius was literally being tortured to death by his government for some reason. Okay, he disagreed with the king or whatever it was. I don't even know the story anymore. But he was being tortured to death, and yet his way to get himself through that torture was to do this translation of Aristotle. And because he did that, we have Aristotle. All of us have it today. Uh, and and as I said, I happen to know that Elizabeth I, when she was in her dying days and knew she was going to die, was reading Boetius's book as a compensation, knowing that she was dying. Um, and I'm sorry, I have to excuse myself for a moment. If you want to perform a soliloquy right now, that would be great.
Soliloquy. Oh, I don't know.
But I'll be back. You could
Okay.
read some notes here or something. I'll be back.
Okay. Notes. I don't see any notes. I don't have my book with me.
Oh, could you hear me now? Yeah, I guess you
Yes.
can hear me. I thought I muted myself, but I guess I didn't. Okay, so anyway, the point about Boetius was that his way of dealing with his forthcoming death, which he knew was coming, was to do this translation that was so important to the rest of us in the West, anyway. Um, and so it doesn't matter what it is, but we all have to find something like that, okay, in order to get through life and to psychologically cope with what's going on. And so what I was saying was my way is to do my painting now, which is abstract, as everybody knows. And what what it does is it allows me to make accessible the healing power of my unconscious. And so it healed me enough so that then I could sleep last night because I was pretty ripped open by that terrible news last night. And I'm sure a lot of people just couldn't turn off the television. And so, anyway, so I want to read a little bit more of this uh, essay because it talks about the divine drama, and it's just the rest of this page. So, uh, so anyway, the interviewer says to John Beebe, "What do you mean by the reality of the psyche? I recognize that as a Jungian expression, but conceptually, isn't Jung's reality of the psyche the same as Freud's psychic reality. And Beebe says, no, not even close. Jung is referring to something we can experience. Freud is pointing to something in the unconscious, which is more true than the self-deceptions that allow us to believe our conscious experience and ignore what may really be going on at the deep levels we continually defend ourselves against. Freud's psychic reality is a postulate as to what we are really like when our defenses are stripped away, something we only occasionally experience. After years with Freud, Jung was more willing to be instructed by conscious experience than theory. The point of the active imagination recorded in the Red Book is that Jung could gain access to psychological experience directly through the mouths of the inner figures he could observe and speak to. Salome granted him the gift of being able not only to witness, but to experience in a sensate way what transpired in the mysterium that Jung named in the handwritten draft as the locus for the mystery plays of his active imagination. In that dramatized inner space, he met many other important figures of the unconscious. Now, when they spoke theory, Jung listened. Philemon's Seven Sermons to the Dead begins like Hellenistic cosmology, but it ends like a rough draft for the analytical psychology Jung would soon lay out in his published writings. Um, and then, let's see.
Oh, that reminds me about writing. I downloaded that book that you wrote a long time ago, or you said that you woke up every day and wrote it.
Oh,
It
yeah.
was something about a Japanese girl.
Yeah.
She had like
Memoirs of
a,
a Woman.
yes,
Yeah. What
I
about
read
it?
it,
Oh, you
and
read it?
she had the doll. I
Yeah.
got one, and
Uh-huh.
I didn't think it would work, but
It does.
it does. Like I
Yeah.
can't explain it. It's like I thought it was goofy. I mean, I'm sorry. I thought it was like, why am I doing this? This is just a story.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I was going through a hard time and I was desperate enough to try, I guess. And now I have him. Doesn't really have a name.
Mm-hmm.
He has like a little t-shirt and it says there's an app for that.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it definitely works. In other words, if you know, I guess girls are more attuned to it than boys. Okay, because girls are used to playing with dolls, and I'm sure, before you're 12, if you're talking to a doll, the doll is actually talking back to you in most cases or many cases. You may not remember that, but if you're spending a lot of time talking to a doll, that's the doll is giving you wisdom that you might not get any other way. Um, and so it was very useful, especially for girls. And um, for boys, I think what happened, we got told that wasn't real, right?
Yeah.
Girls know it's real, okay? Girls know intuitively that it's real and that the doll of their childhood was talking to them, or you must know it now with this doll and
Or
the
that was that movie called Drop Dead Freddy. I used to love that movie.
and I
And
never
it
saw
was
that.
her imaginary friend. He came into the real life, and she was like, "What are you doing here? You're messing everything up." Um, it's a really good movie. It's like one of those weird 80s movies that they would never make now.
Uh-huh.
But
Well,
yeah, the doll, it works. And like I
yeah,
don't talk to it. I just like I don't know. I just have him hanging around
yeah,
and he's my pal.
yeah. And you do not you did you do not feel badly because you read my book, right?
Oh, no. I liked it.
Huh?
I liked it. I thought it was a good book.
Thank you. Um, well, here's a truth. When I was writing that in 93, I was working in an industry that was all women. And my wife, being quite wise, said she refused to read my book until I had had 10 other women read it. And so it happened that I had a lot of women friends and colleagues at the time. And so I had them read it as I was writing it. And God, they were hanging on every chapter. Um,
Oh, yes. You know that style of that genre is really popular with women now. It's like the fantasy romance books. It is
mhm.
flying off the shelves
Yeah,
on TikTok.
yeah. So for those of you who are here and don't know, that we're talking about a book that I wrote under a pen name, which is David Garrettson, and it's entitled Mako, Memoirs of a Woman. And and that was an active imagination of mine. Um, and you could only get it in Kindle version on Amazon. That's the only place it's sold. But if you're interested in this book, um, it's an individuation story for women, basically. It's the it's the individuation, it's the autobiography of my anima, I would say. And so what because I lived in Japan so long, 8 years, and I on two different tranches, first as a high school student, but I went back in the early 80s as a businessman. And I spent 5 years working in business in Japan. And so everything in that book is true. Either it happened to me or it happened to somebody I know intimately from that time that I knew it intimately. And and it depends on how you look at it because it's adult content material, a lot of it. There's a lot of adult content in it, but it's all true. And that's in a way that's the shocking part about it. But this person, this um, Mako, actually woke me up every morning and made me write this story and would not allow me to stop until I was finished. I had to write her story.
Well, I
And
appreciate it. Thank you.
so does it help? Did it help?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really
Okay.
did.
Yeah, it's very it's hard to justify it for me, and it put me off novel writing, but I sometimes lately have been thinking of writing again. Um, because what I tapped into at that time was something like my painting now. It was a direct connection to my unconscious. And I tell you literally that this 15-year-old young woman, young Mako, in a beautiful sari, would come to my bedside every morning at 6 a.m. and shake me awake and make me go right until my fingers would be achy, and then I would have to stop for the day. But I have no recollection of, I didn't, I didn't think anything up. Okay. In other words, I went into my room. I put my hands on the keyboard. I turned the uh, light on my monitor down really low so I could barely see the words that were coming up on the screen. I could barely see the screen itself. And I just watched this movie and typed. That's it. I saw this whole thing from beginning to end.
Oh, amazing. And there were a lot of different elements. Like they had a lot of elements. Now it's been a
Yeah.
while since I read it, but
Yeah.
the doll thing works. I don't even know why I did it,
Hmm.
or like, yeah, I don't even know why. I was just having like a bad time and I just did it. And like I was like felt a little silly and then I put it away and forgot about it. And then I had another bad day and was like, where is it? And then the cycle kept going until I'm like, I'm just gonna keep you around. We're gonna do this together.
Yeah. Well, there's lots in that book, lots, and it's and I promised myself when I was 70 that I would publish it, that I would admit that it was mine and publish it, which I did. Um, and But I had lots of people read it, and you know, all the essentially all the women that read it, including my mother and my wife and my mother-in-law, all loved it.
I think it would sell on TikTok. Book
uh,
talk, they call it.
Book talk on TikTok. So how do you mean just talking about the book itself?
Some women, I mean, it's mostly women. I've never seen a man. um, they just start talking about books and their short stories, and then they come out with a book and do the marketing on TikTok. Um, there are a lot of them now.
Yeah, if people. I sort of thought that this was more intense than the typical romance novel of today, though. Is that not true?
They have these new romances where it's like just a man and a woman together now is like boring. You got to have like all these other intrigues.
Well, there are
It's
plenty of
yeah.
intrigues in that book, as you
Oh,
know.
yeah.
Yeah,
But
yeah. Okay. Well, we've gotten ourselves to the finish time, and this last bit, I was talking about the divine drama, and that's what's going on in all of us. We're all going through the divine drama. And here Amela has joined us at the last minute here before I shut things down. So Amela, what do you have to say? Michelle's at least read my book. uh,
I
anyway,
think there is also another Jungian talk happening live, but it's a speech on another YouTuber's channel. However, It's only the speech of Jung. And I think it's a very interesting one because he's talking about the flame does not explain itself. So
Mm.
the
Yeah.
the projection of our trauma can only heal if we are reflective. So
Hmm.
in other words, if I depend on my teddy bear from Stearns, um, for too long, and one day my teddy bear is lost, maybe, maybe this attachment is going to drive me insane or cause me psychological harm, and therefore I would need to reflect that. But we live in a society right now where people are not really gentle with themselves or with the world around them. And I think first we have to learn how to master ourselves before we look to the outside world and say, let me trauma dump and let me unleash my emotional baggage on everyone else. And whatever symbol comes first, it's all their fault. You know,
Yeah.
instead of first seeking within you what the psyche has to say.
Yeah.
What is the psyche? Because the mind and the psyche, from my understanding of Jungian psychoanalysis, is that those are two different entities of the essence of the human experience.
Yeah. Absolutely. Um, well, I think that's right about this book. I mean, when I wrote it in 1993, so it's been 32 years now, I didn't know what to think about it. And when I was finished with it, I said, wow, okay, I know I can write a book, but on the other hand, um, do I want it out in the public space? And in a way it was, and I didn't. I finally had to convince myself that I would publish it when I was 70. And so the only way I've published it is on Kindle. And as a result, because there's so much on Kindle and on Amazon, not that many people have read it, but I appreciate Michelle's note that I ought to look into book talk on TikTok, which I no doubt will when I finish my current duty of taking my praxis exam. Um,
That sounds like a great idea. And you can always revise the book, right? You can always revisit it and make a revisited version of it. Because as we get older, new doors open and so do new challenges. And we can use the lessons that were helpful to us in the previous decades of our lives,
mhm.
or we can have a revelation of what is to come. Or sometimes there are no words in the human language that can really express. I'm sorry for the background noise.
That's right. Well, I wouldn't change it at all. Um, as a matter of fact, because it came from my psyche and it is this thing. I never have relied on it to make a living. Okay. I know it's a good novel. I know it's well written. And I know, I had more than 100 women actually read it when I was
It's
writing it.
good.
Huh?
I thought it was really good.
Yeah. And
And it like sticks in your imagination too. It's
yeah,
like I read a lot of books and I don't remember anything.
yeah. Um, And many of them said they were hiding under the bed with a flashlight and reading it, hiding under the covers and reading it.
Did you write in the book about your experiences in Japan?
Yeah, basically, as I said, it's the autobiography of my anima for that period. Okay, and
Right.
so it's actually the autobiography of my anima from 1962 when she was 15, and I was 15, obviously, at that time, from 1962 to 2012 or something like that. I forget what I said at the beginning.
I have a book title that has come to me and it keeps coming. I'm thinking of developing. It's like so far like Makeup and Secrets. I think it's gonna be a spy novel.
Good.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I'm just thinking I ought to find this book. Okay, it's under writing projects on my computer. And let's see, there it is. Okay. Wow, I could even show you the cover of it. Since it's my cover, I made the cover. All right, so since we're all here, I will show you the cover of it. First of all, I've got to get this to get out of my way. Okay, here it comes. All right, so there's the cover. Mako Memoirs of a Woman, as told to David Garrettson. And so there was and I actually put in it, so I was pretty far into Jung by this time. I put into it, I'll show you the opening of it. Since we're talking about it, nobody will believe that I wrote it unless I pull it out, but this is actually the PDF that's got the copyright. So one doesn't become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. The latter is disagreeable and therefore unpopular.
Absolutely. Yes, that is so relevant to our time. And I
Right.
love the cover. Beautiful.
Yeah. And what else did I say about? I thought there was a thing where I talked about well, I'll read Dawn. Okay, I've been thinking about doing a red book where I read like the first paragraph of Dawn, because I thought it was a grabber of an opening. The black Toyota Crown with black smoke glass windows rolled through town like a primeval menace. Some people in the street turned away, pretending not to notice. Others bowed very low, as their ancestors had done for 1,000 years. The black car's pace was slow and quiet this morning, its color silhouetted against the patches of snow along the sides of the road. Longtime residents knew what kind of a day it would be from the demeanor of the car. This was a morning to visit the shrine and pray for anonymity. Mako cried the whole night before they came. Her father had sold her to pay the debt. It wasn't a big debt. The money had paid for only one planting of 2 hectares of rice. It was the early winter of 1961. No one controlled the moneylenders in this town near Sendai. The interest was too high, more than 100% per year. Her father couldn't pay. So anyway, it goes on. But let's see. If I thought that at the end of this there was an explanation from the author or something like that, or okay, well, but maybe what I'm thinking of is at the end of the book. Let's see. Let's look at page 300 or something. Okay, here it is. The author's note. My dear reader, I wish I could take all the credit for writing this story, but alas, I cannot. Mako herself wrote the passages with scenes involving her. We talked for hours to establish her message. She tried to write a kind of journal in the first person, but in the end, the emotions were too intense. She told me that the only way she could even recover the memories of some of the events was by writing in the third person. Mako said, I can write it down if I can do it from above, like a bird. The original intent was to take her manuscripts and the transcripts of the tapes of our interviews and meld them into one biography. In the end, though, Mako's own accounts were more powerful than anything I could hope to offer, so we agreed to publish them as they were. You will find them interspersed throughout the book, but always in their unique script. Mako and I have worked hard to make her story vibrate with the intensity of her life. We both hope that its publication will be a giant step toward greater understanding between men and women. May each and every one of you find the peace and happiness that Mako has found with her life. David Garrettson, June 2023, except this was written in 1993. P.S. This is a novel. Any similarity between the characters and characterization in this novel and any human being living or dead is purely coincidental. The name Mako is normally pronounced Yoshiko in Japanese, but the lead character in this novel is not intended to refer to any person named either Mako or Yoshiko. The reason that the name is written this way and pronounced as Meiko is explained in the novel, so I wouldn't want to spoil that here. Yeah, so that's pretty cool. I actually got the Japanese characters in there. Okay, I guess we've done enough selling for one day. If you're interested in the novel, you can find it on Amazon under Kindle. And next week, we will continue on with John Beebe's essay, which I promise you will be less interesting than Mako's story. And maybe I should read Mako. And maybe I should. I'm going to think about that. Do you have any?
That would be amazing.
You think it would be? I mean, for years I've thought about trying to find a Japanese woman who would read it.
Is Filipino good enough?
Well, do you want to read it?
Sure, I'll read it.
Yeah, because I was thinking of, reading the narrative parts, but having Mako herself, somebody who's willing to play that part, read it. It's something we could sell on Audible then.
That'd be really cool.
you know, it's there's there was an older Japanese man who was very moved by the story, and he translated into Japanese. It's actually translated into Japanese, but
Wow.
I couldn't figure out a way to get it published in Japanese, so I just have that translation somewhere in my storage someplace. I have no idea where it is even is, but um, I don't know. We could try it someday. Just you and me. After July 22nd, I have this exam I have to take, but um, we could try it and see if we produce something that's worthwhile.
All right. That'd be
Okay.
cool.
Just it's I don't know. You have my email address, right, Michelle? I
I
I
do.
think I have yours. I'll send you the PDF copy of the book
Okay.
so that you can look through it, because there's several dialogues in there um, that it would, those would be good in a female voice, I think, with you reading both parts, right? Like right at the beginning when Mako is telling Noriko what um, what this what she wants in her biography, right? Because I don't know if you remember this, but there are layers to the active imagination, right? So there's Mako, but um, there's also Noriko, who wants to write the biography of Mako, and so Mako has presented her with this manuscript, but it has these erotic parts in it. And so Noriko's saying, uh, and mind you, this is what, 50 or 60 years later, 60 years later. Okay, so Mako at the beginning is 15, but at the end she's 75. And so the memoirs are the life of a Japanese farm girl from age 15 until she has served as Prime Minister of Japan, and she's now retired. Okay, which you find out in the fourth chapter. And so there's this argument between the two women. It'd be interesting to see I think it's in chapter 4. Uh, let me see.
Okay.
Um,
Do you still have the same phone number?
yeah, I haven't changed
Okay. If I
anything.
don't get the email.
Yeah, I haven't sent emails lately because uh, MailChimp changed their system, and I don't. Let me see if I can figure out where I am. Oh, this is all the meaty stuff is in the beginning of this book. Okay, I think it's chapter 3 where this exchange takes place. Okay, chapter 3. All right, I'll send it to you. I think I have your email address on my thing, and so do I still have this on the screen or not? No. Okay, I'm not sharing anymore. Okay, good. Okay, I'll send you the manuscript and you can find chapter 3 because I think that's a good dialogue, and you would have to do it in 2 voices at least to have the older woman, the 75-year-old woman, and the young reporter.
Okay.
Okay.
Some
So,
character acting.
huh?
Is
Some
it
character acting.
available? Is it available in the Dropbox?
Is it available in the Dropbox? I can just send it to you. How's that? Amela?
As a PDF? Oh,
Yeah, I have it in PDF.
and then can we still purchase it? Are there bindings available for purchase? Because maybe I can drop one off at the library and at my local public library, and then one more at the VA hospital.
Yeah, well, the thing is that it's only electronic. There's no hard copy.
Okay, okay. We'll talk about it when you're done with your
Yeah, I mean,
priorities.
I never had it published in hard copy, just electronically. So, but we can see. Geez, maybe I have it can get people started in a publishing business.
My cousin, my first cousin, my father's niece, her mother-in-law actually works in a factory that binds books. They manufacture
Uh-huh.
books. Yeah. So the publishers, they send her the book. She looks at the books and then she prints them out page by page, cover to end cover.
Uh-huh.
But she's in Slovenia. So that's kind of far, like in a suburban town
Okay.
in Slovenia.
Okay. Well, let's talk about that because what I want that's what I started to talk about before we got distracted on Mako, was my own red book. Okay. And so and you know what the original looks like, right? Wait a minute, here's
No, I've never seen it.
well, let me see. Um, okay, where did I put it? Just a second. I had it just a minute ago. Okay, here's the original red book. What it looks like. I'll share it right now. And so I think it's in about 400 pages with good paper, obviously. And we actually found a source for it back in 2000. And you see it now?
That is majestic.
Yeah, well, it's huge, and you've seen the video, right? There's a video that I put on uh, all of my videos, which is takes you to the video of when they opened the Red Book for the first time, um, and you can see the actual Red Book, and so. I think it's about 400 pages. It's vellum. The paper is vellum, so it's technically it's sheepskin, but um, I would want to produce a volume it's blank, but it's uses very high quality paper, something like um, at least 80-pound paper. And I'll send you some of the things that I've found about it. But if I could find a source, I think I can sell blank red books to the Jungian community. You with me? Okay. So did you hear that, Camilla? Okay.
Oh,
Hi, Michelle. Go ahead.
hi.
I should
So,
cut this short, but
is it
because
going to be the red book or Mako's book?
I am going, I can send you both. No, I'm not going to send the red book PDF.
Oh, no, I have a red book.
Okay. I can send you this picture if you want.
Okay.
Um, I have that photo. I'll send it to both of you, and you can let me know what we should do.
Okay. I'll let you know.
Okay. So meanwhile, we've just done this publicly because we're still on YouTube. So everybody knows what we're doing. And let's see. I wanted to get back to the YouTube, but I don't know how to now. Okay. What has happened? No, not that. Maybe I've cut it off. I don't know.
Hmm.
Because, okay, because that doesn't seem to be YouTube. Oh, okay, here we are. Oh, wow. Okay.
I think the red book looks so phenomenal, Skip. You did a really great job because that's exactly what Jung wants. And at the very beginning of Jung's red book, he says that you have to really invest in something because something that would reflect how your soul would speak to you, right? So
Yeah.
this is a really great representation of your psyche. And I love how it looks like, very couture lambskin leather with
Yeah.
this blood red color, and it looks so majestic. It looks something like an official transcript
Yeah.
From the archives of like the Library of Congress or
Yeah.
something from
Yeah,
the Vatican.
that's that's the thing. I wanna in calligraphy, I wanna enter some of my writing in this book. Okay. And I want to do what Jung did, basically. Okay, because what did he do? He put different writings, he transcribed the black books and he pasted, he either drew into it or he pasted into it, and he did both, the paintings that he did, okay, which are remarkable, as you know. And so I want to start at least the Jungian community doing this, but it has to be a precious book. So it has to be a book that is it costs a bunch of money to buy this scrapbook. I mean, you can buy a journal at Hallmark. You can buy a small journal at Hallmark, but I'm talking about creating something like what Jung did. Um, and I, as I said, in 2020, we had a source and we actually had a woman who could make those books and in Germany. But the guy that was the middleman for it was Thomas Arst. And unfortunately, Thomas died on Easter Sunday of the first COVID year from COVID. Okay. And this was in 2020, so Easter Sunday 2020, Thomas died. And so we no longer had the contact. Plus, the woman that was videotaped making a red book, she actually created it. And it has to be a handmade book. She actually created it, but she died also. And so I've been trying to figure out, as time permitted, ever since then, now over 5 years, how I could produce or get produced a red book like that. Because at the time we were talking about it, and they were making them available at a high price, but making them available. And I had several people lined up that would have bought one. It's not, it won't be cheap, but that's what I want to do. I want to at least get it for myself, if
That's
not
neat.
create a market for it. So
Have you ever, I mean, I know you used to live in Japan, but
yeah,
Japanese bookbinding?
yeah.
Um, because like I buy scrapbooks to journal and to do collages and stuff, and some pages are good and some pages are really good and some pages are trash, and it's
Mm,
mostly trash.
yeah.
So, um, and I like to keep things. So I take out the good pages and do the Japanese bookbinding.
Hmm.
And it's really convenient.
Hmm.
Even stuff I print off the printer.
Hmm.
Um, and you get to stab something. It's pretty cool. You get to stab the paper.
Oh yeah. So you're talking about doing it yourself?
Oh yeah, I do
Yeah,
it
I think
all
I
the
have a
time.
video of this woman making the red book. Uh, it's uh, it's a big undertaking because this is a big thing, right? My folio copy of the red book is 11 and 3/4 by 15 and 3/4, I think. It's 11 and 3/4 wide by 15 and 3/4. And that's the printed version of the red book.
Gift. I love listening to you and you're amazing, but I really don't want to be on the bad side with your wife. So
Oh, you're not on the bad side with my wife, don't worry.
we're at the airport right now. This is William and I, and
Oh,
we're heading to our travels now.
where are you going?
Dallas, Texas.
Where you go?
Oh,
Dallas. Okay. Have a nice trip.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you, William.
Take care.
And Mela, it was great to see you today.
As always, it's always wonderful to see you.
Yeah, have a safe flight.
Thank
Okay, so for all the people that were listening in to our conversation about how we're gonna sell Mako, um, I apologize we got off on a tangent, but it probably was interesting at some level. But I'm excited about your possible interest in this, Michelle, so we can look into it.
yeah.
Because I have actually published at least two audiobooks.
Oh,
Yeah,
really? That's
yeah,
amazing.
yeah. And so we could record it. I mean, I don't know if we could get good enough recordings this way. We might have to.
I can ask my husband because he's really good at that stuff. He has a metal band.
Oh
He has
yeah,
all that stuff. Yeah, yeah, he
yeah.
has a metal band. Um,
And you're in the New York area, are you?
I'm in Florida.
Oh, you're in Florida. Okay.
Almost might as well be New York. It's like
Uh,
so it's so far south all the New York people came down.
yeah, I know. Okay. Well, let me look, because I mean, what I've recorded, these books that I did, I recorded on this computer using my good microphone. And it worked out, but one I did with a colleague. I produced it, but he narrated, he read his book, but at my house. We didn't do it online like this, because I don't think we might not get good enough recording quality that way.
Mhm. Like I
But
asked my husband, he's very creative and
yeah,
would have a solution of some sort, I
yeah.
think.
Okay, well, great. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you for
Yes.
coming online, and thank you everyone for listening in here. My goodness, we still have 7 people watching our
That's
conversation.
good.
Uh,
Well,
and so, okay, so I'm gonna terminate for now, and I'll send you this stuff. If you don't see it in the next hour, um, then get back in touch with me, please, because it means I can't find your email address.
will do.